should be getting some numbers out of retail sales here this morning in just a second. This is pretty crucial to determining the state of the consumer. Let's see what we got. Gold spiked just slightly. Dollar index slightly lower. No big moves here off the rip. Let's see what we got. CAD CPI also came in higher than expected. So inflation a little hot out of Canada. That's interesting. Retail sales came in at 0.7%, although core retail sales, which I believe excludes automobiles, excluding automobiles, core retail sales was actually down. So you had retail sales strong, but core kind of weak. So dollar index slightly lower off this. Let's go take a look at the dollar. Okay, so dollar index here, a little bit lower here on the day, off of some mixed to slightly weak retail sales numbers. In terms of gold not moving too much off of this. Silver still down on the day, but slightly less so now. Take a look at some of the indices. SPX still down about 0.3%. NAS is down about 0.3% as well. Dow Jones down 0.4%. Interesting. And Bitcoin's doing its thing back up to 107.5K. My goodness, this thing is just a roller coaster recently. Crazy stuff. Dollar index overall still looks pretty strong, to be honest, compared to a lot of the other currencies out there. I mean, look at the euro, the pound, everything is just getting crushed against the dollar lately. And then I saw Australian dollar, and this made a lot of sense based on the discussion we had yesterday, based on the Chinese 10-year government bond yields. I mean, look at this thing. This thing is off of a cliff, right? This is Chinese government bonds, the yield that they're offering. So yields in China are falling aggressively. And what that signals to me is that signals that the economy in China is really struggling. And a struggling China, how does that impact the rest of the world? Well, one of the big and obvious ways it impacts the rest of the world is it hurts commodity prices, right? Silver, copper, oil prices. These things are very sensitive to the Chinese economy because the Chinese economy is so manufacturing heavy. So I don't know, that's a little bit of a concerning story to me, especially with like tariff war stuff coming back, trade war stuff. Who knows how bad it could get in the Chinese economy. The point being that if it does worsen, could that become more of a global problem? It's kind of tricky to say. It's very East versus West kind of world, but China and the US still kind of need each other, right? They're both still ginormous trade volume liquidity, the US being that massive consumer and China being that massive producer. That dynamic is still pretty crucial to the global economy. So I don't know, we'll have to see where that goes. Current setups on the Edge Finder, we've got Pound Aussie, Euro Aussie, NASDAQ, and the Nikkei giving us bullish ratings currently on the Edge Finder. And on the bearish side, we've still got our treasury bonds as well as dollar ZAR on the bearish side. Really interesting. I also wanted to mention for those watching currencies, the Australian dollar is a net loser from the slowdown in China. Australia is a massive exporter to China, so a slowing China is not very good for the Australian economy and the Australian dollar as a kind of result of that. So the Australian dollar looks exceptionally weak. It just broke a really long-term level of support around that April, August 2024. These levels of support looks like it may be headed back to test down around the 62.97, which is kind of crazy. That's a big drop here for the Australian dollar overall. again, we've got about an hour before US stock market opens up. US stocks just slightly lower here. And again, I find it so interesting right now, the divergence in the stock market across the board. You take a look at RSP, this is the equal weight. Equal weight looks rough, right? You take a look at the equal weight S&P 500, looks pretty rough. But then you compare that to, the S&P weighted, right? So it's Apple getting a heavy weight in there, Nvidia, Broadcom, these big companies getting big components of the index. It's looking a lot better because the ginormous companies out there are really pulling their weight. Take a look at Broadcom yesterday, was up again, a massive 11%. I mean, just some parabolic moves happening in the stock market world, but it's interesting because it's kind of happening at the top level, right? So you've got these big companies, but then even Nvidia, right? Did you guys see Nvidia? Nvidia is struggling, down another 1.8% here. Nvidia, I mean, I find it really interesting to see that, you've got the stock market rallying so hard and Nvidia kind of not really even participating. To be fair, if Nvidia starts to participate, that could be a very bullish catalyst just to kind of push the stock market. But it's interesting, you've had a little bit of Broadcom taking the reins recently in the manufacturer or the chip semiconductor world, right? Anyways, Nvidia fell below a level of support here that I've been watching, which is really interesting to me. So this big level of support around 133 on Nvidia, you watch that for to see how price reacts under here, because if this kind of goes like this, right, we start seeing continued selling in Nvidia. I do think that will begin to weigh on the stock market. Nvidia is still such a ginormous paperweight on the stock market, if you will, right? I make the joke sometimes that my cat, he's a big guy, when I'm in bed, he's like a paperweight on the bed because he's so heavy. Nvidia is kind of like that to the stock market. He's the big chunky cat that lays on the covers and keeps you from moving. If you have a cat or a dog, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. When your pet lays on the bed with you, it's like, especially if they're a big animal, oh my gosh, it's hard to move. Anyways, that's kind of like Nvidia to the stock market. Nvidia is a huge weight. So if you watch the indices, I know a lot of our audience watches the indices. It's what I watch the most. Then keep your eye on Nvidia, because it's been so interesting, this rotation that we've seen. Companies like Apple coming out of the woodwork. This company was kind of a slow burner for a while. Boom, went to the upside. Broadcom, absolutely parabolic, helping the stock market indices story. I mean, it's very interesting because then you have other companies, Nvidia, I believe AMD is also struggling out there. Yeah, I mean, look at AMD back down to the lows. So you've got a lot of divergence here in this story. You've also got, I mean, can't even leave out United Health. This has been a stock to watch. United Health has been dropping so hard. You guys heard the story with the whole unfortunate killing that happened. You have to just look at this stock and just wonder, how far does this thing go? I mean, we just crossed under 500. We were just at 625 a couple of weeks ago. So really aggressive selling in some specific stocks. It's very interesting to me because the stock market still seems to be holding up, yet there's a lot of individual companies that are really falling apart. One thing that's really holding the market up, my goodness, Tesla has been going crazy. While we're on the stock topic, we can't leave Tesla out. I mean, this thing is a rocket ship to the upside. That's a fitting analogy considering Elon Musk is, of course, the CEO and does all the SpaceX stuff as well. I mean, Tesla, I actually have a covered call at 420. So I don't have any more upside in this stock. I own the stock much lower in price, but I sold a covered call right here, basically selling my rights to the stock in exchange for a premium. Feeling kind of silly for doing that now because I collected a little bit of premium for this, but of course I'm missing out on some massive extra gains. But who would have guessed that Tesla would do all this in a single month? I mean, this kind of move to me in the stock is crazy, and I'm happy to get out of the stock, take profits on it, and come back to it when I feel like people are not loving it so much. Right now, I think Tesla is just so parabolic to the upside. And could it continue? Sure, it could. It could go to 550, right? It could just keep going. But I like to buy stocks specifically when they're low. So, when people don't parabolically love them, that's a little bit more interesting to me.
Did you know we do a live trading show Monday through Friday with guests from all over the world? To get notified when we go live, click the bell button next to the subscribe button or check in at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have helpful, free content in the description below and on our website, a1trading.com. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you tomorrow.